I will email it to you now.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, I'm just gonna mute, and Michael, you can unmute certainly. Welcome everyone to our second session of the day at 10:30. I hope you're enjoying the MACAE Virtual Spring Institute 2023. We appreciate you being here. We got an awesome session today that our ABE Literacy Committee has put together, and Michael Evans is the director of Kalamazoo Literacy, will be sharing out. I just wanted to share with you a few updates before I formally introduce Michael. A reminder that we will be sending out probably at the conclusion of this session, the sketch request form, so you can start completing that. We just need one form per person, one vote, one person, one sketch form, one person, and you'll just complete that. It'll ask you to identify which sessions you attended over the course of the Institute and just something that a takeaway that you learned from that session. So hopefully it's not too complicated in completing that. We are recording all of today's sessions and yesterday's sessions, and they'll may be made available to you, as well as all of the presentation materials as well. And I think that is it for me. We have, after this session, a lunch break, and then at 12:15, we'll have a lunchtime presentation updating you on our legislative and advocacy initiatives. So if you've got some time, we'd love to have you there and update you on that. And then at 1 o'clock, we'll have our last session, can you believe, of the day. But we've got a really wonderful session today here with Michael Evans. Michael he actually is a member of the MACAE Board of Directors, and he joined the board in July of 2021. Hard to believe that it's been so long, but he serves currently as the director of the Kalamazoo Literacy Council. He is a member of the Advocacy and the Adult Basic Education Literacy Subcommittee for MACAE. He's also the MACAE Region F representative, representing Berrien, Branch, Cass, Calhoun, Kalamazoo, St. Joe, and Van Buren counties in Southwest Michigan. So we're very happy to have Michael and his leadership, and he is going to share with us a little bit about advocacy strategies and how we can be effective or even more effective advocacy advocates for adult literacy and adult education. So I'll turn it over to you. Take it away, Michael.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and thank you all for attending this session. As you heard, my name is Michael Evans. I'm the Executive Director of the Kalamazoo Literacy Council. And before we get into the slides and anything else, I really want this session to be something that you can take away some strategies and put into action. Oftentimes things are theoretical, or you might not find that they're possible, but I can tell you everything that you hear today is something that could be put into practice to help you to be able to be that chief literacy advocate to make things change for the mission of adult literacy. I'm going to share my presentation, but I really do hope that if you have questions, they'll be monitored in the chat and they can be raised at any time so I can answer them. It's a little bit different when you're virtual, so I can't see everyone. So please, if you have any questions along the way, let me know, and we'll break out of that commentary and address what it is that you have a question about. So we're going to start. All right, here we go. Okay, so the name of this session is Advocacy Strategies for Promoting Literacy in the Community. And what we're looking for and trying to present at this time are strategies that change what literacy looks like, change how adult literacy is seen in the community, and makes it so that you have a lot more support, resources, and a rallying cry in the community that really does promote change that goes beyond the typical things that we see. I've been doing this work as the Executive Director of the Literacy Council since August 2nd of 2010. So I'm coming up on my 13th year. And I can tell you that that journey has really been a challenging one of really being able to bring adult literacy to the forefront. In the beginning, it was so difficult to be able to break through a lot of the stigma, not just against adult learners, but literacy councils and the misunderstanding of what they are and how powerful they can be within the community infrastructure. So you're going to hear a little bit about the journey that was taken over those last 12 years, but also dropping some very specific strategies that can be employed to be able to move the agenda forward for adult literacy. So we're going to look at 4 things. And again, this is a strung together conversation of this 12-year journey, but I want to pull away with things that you can actually put into place. First thing is we're going to talk about strategies of how to enlist community partners to deliver positive outcomes for adult literacy. And I mean enlist them. We are asking people sign up, not just for volunteering as reading tutors, but sign up to the cause, make a difference from where you are, all hands on deck. It is the priority that we have in every community that has people. Literacy should be that priority. Provide examples of successful collaborative efforts that are making a statistical change in the cause. We don't just have one collaboration. The Literacy Council that we have in our community in Kalamazoo County, we don't do anything by ourselves, and there are several collaborations that we have started or are a part of to be able to make a change. We hope to be able to have some ways for you to strengthen existing collaborations or build the ones that you need to be able to move forward. I want to talk about sharing some methods for how we can raise public awareness and increase volunteer recruitment, fundraising, and partnerships. What we say matters, how we say it matters, and the outcomes based off of what you say and how you say it can be pretty dramatic when it comes to volunteer recruitment, when it comes to fundraising, and when it comes to the general impression about adult literacy as a community priority. Those change based off of how we speak and the messages that we share. And then finally, we want to encourage communities to promote literacy as a right and stimulate change beyond outrage and applause. So I'm going to stop for a second and talk about this outrage and applause thing. I know if you are in this room and you're working with the Literacy Council, you may have heard the types of compliments that may sound like, wow, you guys are doing such great work. It's such great work that you're doing. Or if you share information about the need for adult literacy and people are shocked about the percentage rates, either from the National Adult Literacy Survey or PIAC, which I'll show you a little bit what we have, and they get outraged about it. And for me, I'm tired of outrage and applause without action. We want to be able to inform and get people moving where there can be some change based off of the needs that we present and the pathways to service and volunteerism, philanthropy, and other ways that people can get involved. So we're going to go over these 4 things, and hopefully by the end of it, you'll feel more equipped, possibly inspired, but definitely capable of being that chief literacy advocate in the communities that you serve. So the first thing is I just want you to think about how those conversations in your community are taking place. What conversations are taking place in your community where adult literacy can be a part of the solution? Just think about it for just a second. Well, there's conversations happening in every community. Every community is different, but is adult literacy part of the solution or is it separate from the solution? So I'm going to give you some that we have, and they've been going on and continue to be present in the community that we are in Kalamazoo County. One, there's a crisis of affordable childcare due to shortage of qualified early learning professionals and childcare providers. What's adult literacy have to do with that? Lots. Food inequities and lack of access to affordable fresh produce, which creates food deserts. What does adult literacy have to do with that? I mean, people are talking about it. There's major investments in this effort. We have different studies, and there's a lot of mobilization around it. Find a lane and see if we can make adult literacy a priority in that sphere as well. We have some neighborhoods. One that I live in, which you'll hear a lot about later, is the Edison neighborhood, where the walkways are not accessible due to safety hazards, trash, and the fear of violence in these low-income neighborhoods. What's adult literacy have to do with that? I'm purposely choosing the things where it's not the traditional thing that you think of adult literacy, such as, well, we have adult eds that need to increase the number of GEDs, or we're really trying to make sure that people can read so they can get into the workforce. The traditional messages, those are still there too, but finding out what your community has a priority and bringing literacy to it is where you start to see a lot of the difference. Here's another one, and probably affects everybody on this screen and throughout the state. Lack of broadband internet to bridge the digital divide. What's adult literacy have to do with that? The key thing is how can adult literacy be part of the solution as opposed to spectating on all the investment and community mobilization in the community issues that you have? So as you're thinking through this or listening to this, start putting together what are those community discussions. It doesn't have to say explicitly adult literacy, adult ed, or anything that sounds traditional. It's the conversations that matter that you bring adult literacy into as part of the solution. So I propose when I make presentations, I developed a presentation called the Literacy Advocate Orientation because I wanted to make sure that our community embraced literacy as a priority and they lived out that mission as literacy advocates. Started off with a very simple statement that literacy is the root solution to many community challenges. If you're here, you already know that, but your community might not. And they might think of literacy, adult literacy, as something that is maybe important, but not central to these things. Workforce development. So we'd say that everyone needs to read to get a job. That's how literacy gets connected to workforce development, is through that lens. Is your literacy council directly involved in your local workforce development efforts? Is it seen as part of the solution, or is it still somewhat from the outside of it? Quite frankly, there's a lot of investment that is in workforce development, that if literacy is there, there's the ability to be able to bring resources financially and otherwise into your organization. Early childhood education. Our governor has made it a priority for a huge transformational investment in early childhood education. Is adult literacy a part of that? Well, we say that early childhood education begins at home with a mom and dad who can read, because everyone needs to read to help their children learn. So we're looking at causes and these bigger things and making sure that literacy, adult literacy in particular, is always present. Healthcare, we just went through and still are going through things like the COVID-19 pandemic, and even prior to that. We know that for healthcare, everyone needs to read to manage their health. Are you a part of those healthcare conversations where there's significant amounts of investment and connections to the adult learners? The more adult learners that you see are seen at healthcare agencies than coming to your door. Are we connected to those places where healthcare conversations are happening? Poverty reduction. We know that when it comes to homelessness, when it comes to low income, underemployed, low skills, this is a priority for many communities. I would hope most communities across the state. In our community, we have something called Share Prosperity Kalamazoo, where our city commission has put together and mobilized an effort to bring prosperity to some of our most challenged neighborhoods. We are part of those conversations as a priority. We say that if everyone can read, they can be empowered to change. So the shift of focus is to really stop necessarily thinking of a literacy council as a thing that is by itself, or a thing that is run exclusively by you as a literacy director or an administrator or a volunteer or anyone. It's more of a cause that is delivered by and shared by and held by the community. Much more healthier when we can see it as that. Otherwise, we'll have what we had at the Literacy Council when I first started. I had 49 volunteers serving 55 people, and it was just me. I was one person. Our annual budget for my first year was $49,000, and that was including my salary for the entire county for adult literacy. No connections, no real investment. And the year before that, the annual budget before they hired their first staff person was $5,550 in order to be able to provide for the training that they have for the volunteers. Not that much capacity, not that much investment, and certainly not about workforce development, early childhood education, healthcare, poverty reduction. Literacy is a root solution to a great many challenges, and it's your job as the chief literacy advocate to make sure that literacy is present in all of those spheres. So the problem oftentimes is, well, I don't get invited to those. I'm not invited to that table where they're doing economic development. I'm not invited to the table where they're talking about these early childhood education investments. I'm not a voice when it comes to the policies where the greatest and deepest investments are made to our strongest and most persistent challenges. Well, your job is to make sure that you are. But we do have, as literacy councils, a problem of perception. Now, these are facts that you probably already know. Pro-literacy, the national agency that we're affiliated with, and thankfully I have a membership through MACAE. They're talking about how big this issue is. More than 43 million adults can't read or write or do basic math above third grade level. When I share this information to our local communities, like, that's a big number. Yeah, it's a big number. And sometimes I get outraged about it, but the perception of what literacy councils roles are, there's about 1,100 of us organizations across the United States, is our solution to that big challenge has traditionally been seen as an each one teach one, a volunteer-led solution. So there's a mismatch in terms of, do we have the scale to be able to make a statistical difference against a number that big? Now look at how you talk about your adult literacy or illiteracy rates in your community. Do we have a solution that can credibly address the issue to make a statistical difference? And do we have enough understanding to be able to say, to show what needs to be built to be able to make that change within the community? So the perception oftentimes is that you have these little literacy councils, and I'll share how our organization was perceived before I walked in. Is they were seen as, and they would actually say that this is how they would identify themselves as, we are the little old ladies of literacy. They were almost all women, seniors, highly educated and passionate, but there was only 49 of them who were volunteering. And then they hired me. I changed their demographic very dramatically, because I'm the first African-American male that they brought in, and I'm their first literacy council director. But it was still seen as, well, you have a small little literacy council, what can you do against that big of a number? Well, first we had to show the numbers and come up with a plan. And we obviously wanted to have some statistics that were reliable or at least obtainable. So we used the PIAC assessment to be able to get us some numbers. And I try to tell people, if it's a big number, you need a big solution, and show how we can be a part of that number. Match it up against the National Adult Literacy Survey. We know it's a somewhat outdated survey, but it does give you a number. Do you have a number of what you're trying to bring the solution for? When you have a big number and you're leading it, you actually have the capability of marshaling resources around that number. You're the leading voice. So it is your charge to not look at the people who are in your building, but to look at the people who need your service. We match those, and it's about 14% of our population, 13% of our population, about 7,000 people who need it. And also we look at those who are speaking a language other than English and might need our help. So we have the numbers to tell the story. So that's a big number. We need a big solution, but are there other ways to be able to show why the importance of adult literacy should be addressed in the community? There's a lot of people who need the services, but there's also a lot of people who, without them, will not be able to make their way toward prosperity, say in GED attainment. Different skills or data set, how we look at what our GED attainment looks like in our community. We are the first step along that path to a GED. Some of us as providers, we actually do have the GED testing. We're not one of those, but we work with every adult ed provider to be able to get people on the path. Find your numbers. For us, we were focusing on that 2742 and that additional 7,257 to say we need to at least get 9,999 people served. Can you do that with 49 volunteers and your adult eds and everyone else? Not if they're not organized, but if they have an idea and a vision around the big number, as opposed to what sometimes is said is, if I can just help one person today, then it will be the biggest thing. That's all that matters. No, that's not why we're here. We're here to comprehensively address the issue, which means we need to be bold in our vision and somewhat insistent on community support. And also we try to make the reminder that most people who need services aren't in services. The more than 231,000 Michigan adults who speak English less than very well, less than 4% are in programs. Our programs or any other programs. So there's a big infrastructure gap, and we need a big infrastructure solution. And it's difficult to be a part of that commanding of that big of a ask if your literacy council is still seen stereotypically as, well, you only have tutors. They can each one teach one. And I know that you probably have many other things than that, but check how your community thinks about literacy. Are they seeing you as a workforce development partner? Are they seeing you as early childhood education partner? Do they see you as a healthcare partner? Are you part of the poverty reduction initiatives? Are you a leading voice in all those things? If not, you might be seen as preschool for adults. And that is not a place of position of power, nor is it a good place to be able to represent the needs of our learners, is that mentality. So we also have a challenge of message. First of all, is a perception of what literacy councils are. That's something that with a lot of advocacy, we want to change that, but also the way that literacy is usually talked about in communities. So I'm going to submit to you that the prevailing message about literacy really isn't about literacy. It's what I call literature appreciation. I want to show you some images and see if this type of image is prominent in your community and more prominent than what you are. Something like this. These are posters. They were posted in my community. We have some that are like it. I'll be updating these with a new one, but they tend to have the same message. And the message, if you look at it, really isn't about the type of literacy that we do. So I'm hoping that you can put into the chat, do you see messages like this? Is this the most prominent message about literacy in your community? Is it the only message that you have about that? We see it in schools, libraries, and these are all our friends, but they are not talking about us. And we want to have a message that is much more capable of being able to promote our cause, but also be able to promote properly the importance of our cause. So if you have this as a message, we need to have a message of our own that can really point people in the right direction and raise and elevate the cause of adult literacy as a priority, a prime priority. Now, when I've joined this organization 12 years ago, I wanted to see what our message looked like. So I was walking around asking questions of our Michigan Works, asking questions of our Family Health Center. I wanted to go where people who we were supposed to be serving were already at. We had 49 volunteers serving 55 people. And when I went to these places, they didn't know who we were at that time. They didn't know what the service was about. They had difficulty making a referral to our program. And that was frustrating. I was the new executive director. I thought we were going to have friends. No, we didn't. The flyer that was out there for the day, and this is sometimes just what happens. And if you have a message like this, I'm not trying to say it's wrong. I'm just going to say that maybe we need a different one to help. I found a flyer from the Literacy Council in the lobby that looked just like the literature appreciation messages. And if you think about it, when our adult learners, when they see those messages, it doesn't really apply to them because you see in the previous screen, almost everyone who was on that screen was highly educated, reading books and happy about the experience. Almost everyone who comes into our services, they're not as highly educated and they're struggling with this reading journey. And they also want things beyond books. So this bias toward books and bias toward literature is getting in the way of things. We even had in our community for their 25th anniversary, and thankfully before me, this was in their 25th anniversary, a local marketing firm that manages different types of accounts for Fortune 500 companies, from Kellogg's to Toyota to everything else. And they gifted us a message that they thought would work to help raise awareness and get more people involved. So I'm going to share this, and I'd be interested in your perceptions. I will say that our Literacy Council never used it, but this is what they gave us. It's great to get help, but wow. The message for literacy in every community needs to be an empowering one. The message for literacy needs to show that we are a priority within the community. We are a part of the agenda. And as a chief literacy advocate, we should be the ones leading that and making sure that our message is put forth in a way that empowers and does not stigmatize our organizations, literacy councils, and most importantly, our adult learners. Thankfully, our Literacy Council at the time didn't use this message, but it was for the wrong reason. And they've kind of owned up to it. They were saying, well, we don't want our tutors to be represented this way. So they were more ashamed about how the volunteers would be seen as opposed to how the agency and the cause would be seen. We want an empowering message, and we want to be a priority message. And we want people to have more than outrage and applause for the good work that we do, outrage for the conditions that we are facing. We want to make sure that we have a message that works. So what's your message look like in your community around literacy? What did the literacy transactions look like within your community? So how will we get your message into places that matter? Well, almost every place wants to make sure, especially if they're trying to serve everyone, they want to make sure that their message is getting through to people, all people, particularly those who have the most barriers. Literacy is one of them. And I always ask them, well, what do your literacy transactions look like? Like, what does that mean? It's like the actions that require response in reading or writing, job application, healthcare forms, everything that you do. And go to the biggest places that have literacy transactions that impact the importance of people's lives. The Department of Health and Human Services, I gave this message to. First time I said I wanted to be with the Department of Health and Human Services, they put me in the lobby next to the League of Women Voters, and I was handing out bookmarks. I hated that. So we're not making a change when we are in the lobby and not a part of the process where literacy is taking place. I gave a presentation similar to this. I call it Literacy Advocate Orientations. And I said, I'm going to deputize every single one of your case managers. Over 2 days, I trained about 189 people. And within that next week, we were getting referrals from their agency because we switched and raised their awareness about their literacy transactions. I asked them, when you're passing out all that paperwork and you're wondering why people aren't filling it out and why people aren't showing up, do you have a solution for it? So ask yourself when you are talking to agencies and even to your community as a whole, what do your literacy transactions look like? That is a main way or a priority way of getting into the conversations. If you want to make sure that messages get through, you need to have literacy as a part of the solution. How are literacy transactions handled in your agency or the community? I asked this of Michigan Works, our libraries, healthcare systems. They said very poorly. We can help you with that. We do document reviews to revise them for adults to make it so that they're more, that any document is more accessible for learners and readers of all levels. They pay us $100 a page for us to just basically revise documents. That's what we have as a service. And oftentimes I have our adult learners helping with that process. Does your agency or community have a message that raises awareness about the importance of literacy? Does it? And if your community doesn't have one that's focusing on us, perhaps you might want to create one or come together as a community to have one. Does your agency or community know how to refer adults who need free literacy or language services? I'll go to all the places where there's that point of contact, where the receptionist, the may I help you people, as I ask. And I ask the question, if I can't read, do you know where to send me? And if they don't, I schedule a literacy advocate orientation and say, I'm going to show you how. I did it with Michigan Works and all their case managers and career coaches. First time I did it, I had a guy that was probably bigger than me. You can't see on the camera, I'm 6'4", but he was bigger than me and he was nearly in tears because he had encountered an individual who struggled to read, but he didn't know how to make that referral. I gave him the literacy advocate orientation, left our information and said, call him back. And then they invited me to come to their orientations for when they have incoming individuals for the PATH program. We got referrals from that perspective. So if you ask them what your literacy transactions look like, or what are some of the barriers that you have, you can be part of the solution and you get inserted into their processes. So we are a part of the orientation process for Michigan Works. We are part of the process for how our Department of Health and Human Services manages the many cases that comes into its community. And we continue to make sure that we are raising that question. How are those literacy transactions handled? If it's poorly, step in with a solution, usually a low cost, low permission solution. So the low cost, low permission solution for the Department of Health and Human Services and for Michigan Works, I said, well, every time you pass out this information, let them know that this might be a little bit difficult. There's a lot of people who struggle to read this. There's a lot of people who might have some difficulty filling it out. Tell everyone, and then say, if you or someone you know needs free reading help, we have a free service to help you, and then give them a number. I don't have to say this message anymore. Michigan Works does it, the Department of Health and Human Services does it, Family Health Center does it, because this message is out and this training is available for free. I have two literacy advocate orientations coming up, one with our IRB, that's our institutional review board, people who are making those medical trials. They want to know how to make sure that the informed consents are written at a level that is more accessible to all readers. That's going to connect us to a lot of healthcare providers and practitioners and strengthen our relationship with WMed and Bronson, simply because I'm there. And they pay a $600 stipend for a service on that IRB as a community member. I think that's pretty great. So think about the literacy transactions. What new conversations can you have with everything from the post office to City Hall to be able to make sure that you can raise awareness, but also propose a solution. We can help you revise your documents. We can help you have services that are free in the path of the people who you are serving. We can be a part of the solution in your agency. The message that we want to have, and this is just what we have in literacy in Kalamazoo County, but I would hope that you would want the same thing, is we don't want literacy councils and adult learners to be stigmatized by the enormity of the need. 25,000 people struggle to read. Oh boy, it must be terrible for those individuals. It may be, yes, but we don't want it to be a situation where our megaphone starts to make it so that learners don't want to walk in our doors. I wouldn't want to walk in the door where they had that poster of that man with his head between his knees in shame and say, that's for me. We need an empowering message. For it to be a destigmatized message, it has to be changed to be more accurate and relevant. Again, as the literacy council in your community or literacy provider, you're the chief literacy advocate. It's your job to monitor. Does the message about literacy, is it accurate, as in talking about what literacy can do, not just about books, and is it relevant to our conversations in workforce development, healthcare, early childhood education, and others? Needs to apply to everyone. If it's only applying to those who struggle to read, then it's going to make it so that for those who do need your service, they're going to feel like they're alone out there. Our services, when we promote them more broadly into why you need to learn how to read, to get a job, help your children learn, manage your health, as opposed to you are reading at below 4th grade level and I'm going to be your tutor. We want to make sure it's a message that applies to everyone, because everyone needs to read to get a job, help their children learn, and manage their health. And it needs to be public and visible. When I did my first walk around, it was our organization was invisible and most people did not have it posted. I like it to be as visible, as handicap accessible, as don't smoke, as any other public message. We're working to make sure that our message is one of those types of message. I want our number to be, or at least the response to an emergent event, to be as intuitive as when a house catches on fire, you know who to call. When you see a literacy challenge, you should know who to call as well. That's why we give these presentations so much. Our message should apply not to the us and them, just to those who struggle to read, but it should apply to everyone. It's a community message, not just for those who struggle to read. We'll get into what that looks like just a little bit later, but when we are isolated from the broader conversations, we are isolated from the resources that support those broader conversations. So we want to be a part of everyone, not just those who have literacy and those who don't. We want to make sure that their message applies to everyone. We want a public message instead of a private concern. These are the hallmarks of the message that you can craft for your community or how you speak about this. If it's a message that can be spoken when you're not there, it's a good public message. That's why I don't have to go to the Michigan Works or the Department of Human Services, Health and Human Services anymore. They have a public message. I don't have to be there to say it. If it's a private concern, it usually happens when someone is struggling to fill out a form and then all of a sudden literacy becomes visible for that person. And many people don't like that. Why are you coming to me only when you notice that I couldn't read? There's a public message. They know where the service and support is and how to get connected. It should take one phone call to get a person pointed in the right direction for adult literacy services. And one person who's in one of those service positions should be able to point you in the right direction. I'm still testing that. I think we're down in most cases to one call, but there's a few deserts that we have out there. So this message that I'm going to propose, and there's lots of them out there, but again, we want something that is be accurate and relevant about how we talk about it. And you become the chief literacy advocate. You are the spokesperson. Talk about why people come to you, not just the fact that there's people who struggle to read and at below 4th grade level. We have an updated message. Everyone needs to read to excel at work. So we're part of workforce development. We're at Michigan Works. We're at our employer resource network. We are in a lot of the economic development conversations. That is the job, is to make sure that literacy is a part of that. Everyone needs to read to teach their kids. We are part of the selection of our new school superintendent. We're looking at summer education programs, after school programs. We are a part of the early childhood education discussion. Literacy, adult literacy in particular, is very much central in many of those conversations. And everyone needs to read to keep their families healthy. The images that you see are quite a bit different than the posters that we're seeing before. And they were created by a local illustrator by the name of Paul Sizer, who donated his services to us for free. He says, what can I do to help? I don't want to be a tutor. I said, you don't have to be a tutor. You're a great designer. Can you design some images that help us to be more prominent and visible in our community, get people's attention, and provoke some conversation, and better yet, action. So he donated these images to us, and we put it to the good use. And I'll show you some of the ways why, or how. First of all, we embedded it into each of our messages. And when I give these presentations to our Rotary clubs or to our community partners, I'm always using statistics that come from other places other than literacy councils, because a lot of times they don't believe it if it's only coming from a literacy council. I said, yeah, it's coming from a literacy council today, but here's some reasons why I can prove to you, you need us in early childhood education. We know these statistics, so I point this out, and it comes from the National Institutes of Health. So early childhood education does not begin at preschool. It begins at home with a mom and dad, uncle, or someone who can read. You need us for that. So now you can get early childhood education or family literacy funding simply because we are the most important factor. We talk about being able to read to succeed at school. If your schools are having poor academic achievement or poor literacy rates, let them know that we could be a part of the solution, because we are the most important factor when we are helping those parents to be more confident and capable first teachers of their children. We've convinced them to do this, and funding has come because of the result of that. In our community, we have this unique scholarship called the Kalamazoo Promise. And a lot of those individuals who are graduating from our school, they get free college tuition, but many of our lower income or poor academic outcomes are not capable of achieving the promise. So we are part of that solution of saying, let's help equip those parents to be more confident, capable first teachers for the Kalamazoo Promise. One of our most prominent priorities, we have the Literacy Council as a part of that discussion. And we always lead with why we are so important for that. Is children of parents with low literacy skills are 72% chance of repeating that cycle. We use the National Bureau for Economic Research. Now, when I say this early childhood education, I've been invited to almost every conversation about it, even at the beginning when we weren't funded by it. At the end of it, we've been able to attract collaboratively, and I'll show you the collaboration later, over $650,000 in early childhood education through our organization to direct early childhood education priorities. I thought that was pretty impressive. That was over less than a 3-year period. Some reasons why we talk about workforce, and I'm telling this to all of our our employers, Michigan Works and several others, and they start to say, you know, we haven't really talked about literacy as a part of that. And we don't have a solution of how we work with individuals who may struggle to read. Can we refer them to you? I said, yeah, I'll teach you the commercial. It's a 10-second commercial. If you or someone you know needs free reading help, we have a free service that can help you. Give them bookmarks, go to their orientations, train them how to speak like you as a chief literacy advocate. I even deputized them. I said, you are a literacy advocate. Give them a certificate and get them signed up officially as that point of contact for your agency. Michigan Works has a lot of resources, and if they are not working with you for the benefit of your learners, this is an opportunity to be able to say, let's work together and get some free, highly qualified help working within your organization. Same thing with health. We have a local health group, and this was one of the statistics that they brought to us a lot. Literacy skills are the strongest predictor of health status, more than age, income, employment status, educational, or racial ethnic group. Again, it's not from a literacy council, it's from the Partnership for Clear Health Communication. And I'm saying this to Bronson Healthcare, who gives us funding for some of our programs. We have a board member from Bronson Healthcare. We are part of WMed and several others because they can see that they need us in order to improve care. We also have a policy systems and environmental change program. And if your community hospital has to do with community health needs assessment, be a part of those discussions, because the solutions that come out with it, if it's written in their health needs assessment that they need literacy, that's an opportunity to get funding for your cause, because you are a necessary part of improving health outcomes. A couple of reasons why, I won't go into them. Another big reason is if you have literacy available, you can reduce the cost of healthcare due to poor healthcare outcomes due to low literacy. So again, American Journal for Public Health. Is your literacy council a part of those conversations? Is it leading the conversation? Is it a partner in the conversation? You don't have to lead them all, but you do need to be present. We'll talk about how to get into some of those doors. So our message is everyone needs to read. And I like it because it includes everyone. If I said, raise your hand if you need to read to do your job, you would be raising your hand right next to the person who has never been able to read the alphabet at all. So it's an all hands on deck message. We were able to get some donated billboards. Now we have some funding to be able to pay for some of this. We have them on the back of buses, have them on billboards through Adams Outdoor Advertising. And it's been really great having a message that is talking about us as opposed to the message that is only about, say, the appreciation of literature. I mean, those are still great, but we want something that talks about us and points people in the right direction. If you need help or want to help, call this number. That's what we say. Less than 10 seconds, we have a commercial. And we are training everyone to be able to say that, to be able to create literacy advocates. We also built partnerships that are across literacy for all levels. So we partner with our communities and schools, SLD Read. We have an organization called Read and Write Kalamazoo. We all have a joint statement that everyone needs to read. You see a little bookmark, I have it everywhere. Pass it out to everyone. If you want to help or need some help, give us a call. And we are getting help from these other agencies that are recruiting tutors for children, or they're looking at literacy maybe from a literature perspective or a writing perspective. We're getting volunteers with them and through them. We're even blending some of our training so that some of their training will meet some of our qualifications from their agencies so we can train and share volunteers. That's one of our latest efforts. So getting the message out there increases visibility, increases action, and it also increases prominence. Do you have a public message? Can you get a billboard, donate it? Can you have a mural painted? Something to make your organization's message is prominent. Incidentally, we have posters of these messages. So everyone needs to read to teach their kids, or most of our schools. The healthcare has a lot of the health ones, and Michigan Works and several workforce development agencies have the third message. So what's the acceptable rate for adult illiteracy? If it's 13% or 15% or 12% in your community, I ask this question of our community all the time. And especially one of the times I had one of the loudest cheers, and they were the most angry. Again, that outrage is not enough. You have to do something about it. It was the Rotary Club. They said, it must be zero. I said, okay, what are you going to do about it? Now, they did give us a check afterwards, but they also started sending us volunteers, and we are a part of their literacy effort. But if you have a community that says we need to get to zero, you should be the voice. Don't wait for anybody else. Be the voice that says, if you really care about that and you want to be serious about getting to zero, we want to be a part of the solution for getting to zero. So here's what it might look like. Reduce the high school dropout rate. Yep. Okay, the schools are trying to do that, but when the literacy council's giving the prescription, you are in charge of the agenda. So we're saying we're going to get to zero. We're talking to schools to do that. Ensure every high school graduate that is that has completed is reading at least the 9th grade level. You know who's enrolling into your services. Let them know how many people are graduating and coming to your services still reading at a low grade level. In our case, we have about 12% of our population with high school diplomas. And this is not from another country. This is right in our community. So we're right embedded in the process of saying, at least make sure they can read at 9th grade level upon graduation. If they can't, send them to us. Engage every person who's dropped out of high school and mentoring and other services that re-engage those learners. And I'm working with our mentoring organizations. I say, if you're a big brothers, big sisters mentor, or any kind of mentor, the best thing that you can provide beyond playing cards or taking them to a movie or something recreational is helping them to learn how to read. That's a good place to get some tutors. Tutoring is mentoring if done in a blended way. Engage new and returning residents with low literacy skills within 60 days. If you do have a reentry effort, make sure you are at the table. You'll have individuals who are returning to your community. 70% of the incarcerated population needs our help. We want to be there, and we can get enrolled directly within 60 days. We get referrals right out of it. We also have gotten funding to be able to provide support for those returning citizens. They can be new, as in new immigrants and refugees. We're part of our local refugee resettlement effort. We're one of the voices at the table. We make sure we're at every table where there's a point of entry for adult learners, and we have an offer to help. If your offer needs funding, give the offer and also give the cost. So for almost every one of these efforts, once we get agreement with our partners, I've been able to secure a grant to be able to support it or get some type of sponsorship or investment to be able to get them in place. So it's your job as a chief literacy advocate to propose a bold vision to achieve a fully literate community. Not the, I can just serve 55 people with 49 people and do that really well. It's a fully literate community if that's what your community asks for. So in my community, they said fully literate community. And I said, okay, great. What are you doing about it? Because we can't do it by ourselves. Our project is to build an adult learning campus that has capacity to serve the existing and future need. So all those other 4 points, we're saying we need this, but the real work of our literacy council is to build an adult learning campus, places where people can study, that are with a faculty of talented volunteers and instructors to be able to meet the existing and future need. Our goal is to have 1,250 people completing every year to make a statistical difference, and we're building toward that effort. So our community knows it. Fully literate community, 0 is our target rate. Is it possible? Yes, if you mobilize, not if you don't. So part of it is when you're building collaborative relationships is transition adult literacy into a community issue and make it in partnership with others. Because when it's an agency issue, doing it by yourself, that's when you do not have the capacity, nor do you have the influence or connections to be able to bring in the resources necessary to serve the big number, 25,000, 27,000. We don't want it to be an agency issue because it's impossible. Transitioning into a community issue means that you need to be the person at every table saying adult literacy can be a part of the solution and we are here to help. If you need funding to be a part of that help, come with that request as well, so that you can get the support and not cannibalize and martyr yourself through your mission. So the collaboration, some things that you can start if you don't have a collaboration, start with a plan that inspires action. I was hired August 2nd in 2010, and it was explicit in my job description. You need to make a collaboration. So within the first 30 days, that's September 25th, the following month, we had our first adult literacy collaborative meeting that was never been formed. We pulled it together ourselves because I was looking for a place where I could join. I don't want to invent it if we could just join something. Form or join a collaboration that has adult literacy as its focus. There are some collaboratives that don't, but make it so that adult literacy is a focus, is a stated priority. And that's something that you continue to fight for until it is explicitly stated. I have done that in several meetings. They had digital access for all. I said, does it include the adult learners? This is when they were trying to close the digital literacy gap in our community. And there was investment in laptops and hotspots during the COVID-19 pandemic. I said, is it a part, does it include adult learners? And I wasn't satisfied until it did. Now, all of our hotspots that we still have, they are paid for through another agency that I don't have to pay for anymore. Create a charter that defines priorities and holds partners accountable. So that applause, you're doing great work, that doesn't help. That outrage, how can it be 13%? That doesn't help. What are you going to do about it? Get it so that you can get from them commitments of what we're going to do. I held this out to our then mayor, Bobby Hopewell, and he said, oh, there's a grant that we can get for impact volunteers. Now, he's the mayor. This is only 4 mayors, and it came out of the Bloomberg Foundation of all places. And he got us $50,000 to start building those literacy centers that we had, simply because he wanted to make good on his promise of what could you do something about it. And finally, deputize partners to deliver outcomes. I want to make sure that if anyone could be a part of the Literacy Council, not just tutor volunteers, we deputize everyone. We'll show you what that has resulted like. So our Adult Literacy Collaborative meets once a month. Patrick has been a part of some of these conversations. We pull together libraries, workforce development agencies, churches, healthcare, and several others with a very explicit mission. And they came up with this along with us. They want to work to ensure every adult in Kalamazoo County has the literacy skills necessary to be successful at work, at home, and in the community. This is an infrastructure project. So we're building something, and we need to get our community rallied around this. This is in our charter, and we have agencies that have signed it. We're rallied around a community level outcome of making sure that 100% of the learners that we serve, whether it's in adult ed, if it's not ours, or a church is teaching ESL, or Michigan Works, 100% of who we're serving, we want to get reading at least the 6th grade. And if they're not, send them to us. We want to increase to make sure that adults in Kalamazoo County are all reading at above the 6th grade. Again, a big vision means you have a big solution. But if you're guiding it, that means that you're open to larger investments and a greater amount of responsibility and prominence for your mission. I always promote our Literacy Council as being affiliated with MACAE and with pro-literacy so that we walk in as the authoritative voice on adult literacy. Because sometimes you get sidelined by, if you have, say, a university, they have a literacy studies department. Yes, they know a lot about literacy, but they don't know a lot about us. So walking in and having these affiliations gives you the confidence to walk with authority on the mission. If there's not another literacy council, if you are it, take ownership. It says, I am a chief literacy advocate, and you need to listen to what we have as terms of the cause and the solutions that we propose if you want our community to be better. It's a boldness of mission. It's not about arrogance or ego. It's about the importance of your mission and letting people know that they can join in this cause. We meet once a month, and almost everything that we have built has come from agreement around these conversations. We propose a solution to train a faculty of volunteer tutors. Remember, we had 49 people serving 55 people with an annual budget of $49,000. Not going to make it. We wanted to be able to put literacy in every neighborhood and every zip code that needed it. We've made a model for community literacy centers, which I'll show you in a little bit. And we wanted to get all hands on the table. That was our common commitment. And we still have over 34 organizations that are committed to this in common commitment. And I am the facilitator. We have had other collaborations that have come and gone over the years. Ours has been the strongest and the most sustained when it comes to literacy since I've been here. We organize ourselves into different work groups. ESL, we brought all the ESL providers together. They said, we want to coordinate instruction across multiple sites and providers. Fine. We want to increase Burlington English. This is what they said. And we want to be able to improve our CASAS testing capacity. They came together as a group. We led the conversation. Health literacy. They have said, as far as our health providers, they wanted to increase the amount of SNAP Ed classes. I said, sure, can you bring SNAP Ed to our classes? They actually gave us a contract to teach SNAP Ed to our adult learners. It was about a $12,000 contract. So I got college interns to teach it, so I didn't have to. We integrated summer into our ESL programs to kind of close the summer gap and got funding as part of refugee resettlement. And we have health fairs where we actually have literacy. We provide literacy services at these health fairs that helps us. So they come to us and we have a different group. Most of these groups, they meet either on a monthly or a quarterly basis, but it's set on them. But again, we are the coordinating agency for them. Our adult tutoring, we have, if you're going to have tutoring, we talk about one-on-one training and building community literacy centers that meets once a month. I lead that. Parent literacy, we're focused on multi-generational learning, parent education, and partner referrals. We lead that in collaboration with Western Michigan University's McGinnis Reading Center and Clinic and Goodwill Industries, which we have a strong partnership. A couple more. Workforce literacy, we meet in partnership with Goodwill and Michigan Works, where we talk about digital skills and create strategies for a common jobs curriculum across our agencies and develop career pathways. That's a funded work group as well. And navigation. I firmly believe that our learners, they need the support to be able to stay engaged in services. So we hire navigators to remove barriers to service. We train them, we get paid to train them. In fact, we actually got funding through the Office of Adult Education way back in 2012 to come up with the initial training. And we've been running that ever since. The Regional Prosperity Initiative, we were able to get over $80,000 around this effort. And we provide wraparound services through 4 navigators who we've trained, and we receive partner referrals from all throughout the county because we organize these tables. How is literacy, adult literacy organized? If these tables don't exist, maybe you might want to start a work group around a collaborative. Start with the willing and the present. I put out 1 letter to our partners and said, if you care about adult literacy, come to this meeting. And they've been coming once a month since September 25th of 2010. So what has that gotten us? You're out in the community talking boldly about the mission, giving these literacy advocate orientations. I run this slideshow and they keep telling me to come back and do college classrooms and all of these different presentations. My goal is to deputize literacy advocates because at that time it was a staff of one, just me with 49 volunteers. We needed to be able to grow. Every place I went, I said, well, can you become part of the work that we do? Can it be part of your job? And it should be part of their job. So we were able to add from workforce development agencies at no cost to us, 6 people. These are career coaches and people who are working within their service centers. They are a part of our faculty. Like, yep, you're deputized. College interns, 32 of them. So we were able to get from Western Michigan University, K College, and Kalamazoo Valley Community College. We coordinate those services, and they are trained as tutors. They're running health literacy classes and doing lots of other exciting things that I don't have time to share with you. AARP, if you have an AARP program, they pay seniors to do roles. I have 2 of them running literacy centers for us, not on our cost. College faculty, they're doing a lot of research and supervising interns. We have a 5-year memorandum of understanding with Western Michigan University to leverage their university capacity to deliver outcomes in the community through literacy. Intermediate School District, we partnered with not our local one, but Van Buren ISD, where 2 of their adult eds are part of our team at no cost to us. In fact, we actually get a contract for about $60,000 a year from them to maintain that partnership. Libraries, 3 librarians are part of our team. They come out to our monthly family literacy days with their mobile library and are integrated into our services. Like we have this extended staff. Healthcare, we have healthcare providers that teach our health literacy classes. We train them on how to make it more accessible for learners with lower literacy and language skills. They are available to us at no cost. And with faith-based and community-based organizations, every place that we have a literacy center, we have a single point of contact that we call a literacy advocate that is a part of our team. So we went from a staff of a few to a deputized staff of 75. And these are people who are accountable to working in the mission of literacy, just by asking and creating roles and the coordination structure through Adult Literacy Collaborative. It didn't start off this way. It started off with one conversation, but it's grown every year as we've had new challenges and we've added new partners to the initiative. We call it the Everyone Needs to Read Adult Literacy Initiative, and we've been running it for the last 12 years. So all the years that we've been running it, it's preaching this message, because I feel sometimes that I am kind of evangelical when it comes to promoting this. We've been able to add more volunteers year after year, and at the rate we also were getting more learners for most years. COVID hit, we took a little bit of a dip, but we are coming back to our pre-COVID numbers, simply because we've been asking more of our community to point people in our directions, increasing our training capacity, increasing the number of sites that we have in the community. Our community literacy centers is well, can you tutor in my church? Sure, we can tutor in your church, but I don't want a church site. I want a community literacy center. So we created 15 literacy centers against the 25 that we wanted so far. Always have a firm number. We chose 25, we have 15. And our model that we established is flexible, adaptable, affordable, cost-effective, sustainable, and capable of achieving results. I wrote a concept paper and shipped it around. This is what our mayor funded $50,000 for when I said, I want to build a campus of adult literacy centers. These are our partnerships. The ones in green are the ones that are active post-COVID, but we have all these other partnerships. Most of them are still in our virtual learning center. The one at Interfaith Neighborhood Network Center, if you have a low-income housing complex that has a neighborhood network center coordinator, talk to them about your services and they can deliver it for free. In our case, they contract us to run the neighborhood network center. So I have another staff member that I didn't have to raise funds for. It was already there. They run the neighborhood network center. And guess whose services they promote first? Ours. They train volunteers to provide services right in a low-income housing complex, and we get paid to do it. We do one-on-one tutoring, small groups, classes, and self-directed learner across this campus that is largely staffed by volunteers trained by us and professionals who are hired by other agencies. So we have a small staff footprint, 75 other people are joining us to be able to make this campus work. We have a Parent Literacy Together program. What's adult literacy have to do with early childhood education? build a partnership, and we've been able to get over $200,000 just to run these family literacy programs. It's one of the fastest growing programs that we have. Look at all the partners that we have, all of them literacy advocates, all of them looking to us as leadership for this particular initiative, just by talking about it and building the structure. Remember, we were talking about food insecurity. We created a community garden. It's in the back of Goodwill Industries. I'll be going there next week. We have our first Family Literacy Day. It's aligned around SNAP Ed curriculums, so we can get funding for fresh produce. And we're training urban farmers as well as teaching in the outdoor classroom. Last year, they got over $25,000 that was invested. And Farmer Mike, that's also me, gets to have fun in that garden. Job opportunities and basic skills. Our Michigan Works, Kalamazoo Literacy Council, and Goodwill, we share a curriculum that trains people in literacy skills that removes barriers to workforce development over 6 weeks. And we have career pathways in early childhood education, food service careers, and manufacturing. The early childhood education career pathway is a funded career pathway. Over $600,000 has been invested for that. Grow with Google. Yep, you can take our computer classes taught by trained volunteers, and you can get Google certificates, level 1, level 2, an open lab. And that was funded through a $50,000 grant that came through our partners at Goodwill Industry. Edison ECE career pathway, early childhood education. That was a crisis in our community. They built a new child care center and came to us and said, can you recruit talent? And we said, yeah, we can. And we got an initial grant of $275,000 to coordinate that effort. It went through our agency. It didn't go through all the bigger ones that you see. And we continue to be the fiscal sponsor for that to this day. Over $650,000 of investment through our agency, because we said literacy should be a part of the early childhood education solution. When COVID-19 hit, we had to create a virtual learning center, and we made the case that we are essential workers. And when the disaster relief funds came into place, we were able to get funding to support this, to buy our laptops and hotspots and train people. So we were able to get 238 people into services in about 2 weeks after we brought all of our resources together to be able to do it. What made this possible is saying that literacy is a part of the effort. We are not separate from it. We were the essential employees, and we got funding through our disaster relief funds to keep this going. And we still get funding for this program because 80% of our learners, after they went virtual, say, I want to stay virtual. We teach all these classes virtually. Now, I know I'm going through a lot, but collaborations are what helps your organization to grow. In fact, one of our growth strategies is growth through collaborations. If you have an institution of higher learning and you don't have a relationship with them, get one. If you have a relationship with them, make it intentional. Our relationship with Western Michigan University is a signed memorandum of understanding that says that their university capacity will be driven through our organization. We help them with their Carnegie accreditation for community outreach and engagement. They help us by giving us a lot of free support. We even have a faculty member who's assigned to us full time. He's our faculty in residence. We have a fellowship program where graduate students are awarded $4,000 fellowships to do work in our communities. And the Edison Education is On project is one of them. We had the bold vision of adopting one of Kalamazoo's most challenged neighborhoods and turning it into a learning neighborhood. So we're developing a literacy trail. What's does literacy have to do with safe walkways? We're going to make a literacy trail. It's going to have literacy, health, and history, and there's funding for that. Create a map of all the learning sites in the Edison neighborhood that includes all of our literacy services and every type of learning, so that that neighborhood will be reinterpreted as a learning neighborhood instead of by its challenges. I also live in that neighborhood, by the way. We partnered with the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, and they teach Osher Lifelong Learning Institute classes. They just started in our adult ed sites, bring in community learners with resident scholars and our adult learners. Doesn't cost us anything. And we have an annual adult literacy research and training symposium where we report back to our community and our region what we've learned and what our priorities are through Western Michigan University. Now that trail I was telling you about, the unsafe one, college kids, they cleaned it up, but that's going to be interpreted with literacy and history. The Literacy Council is leading that effort. The class that came through was designed around the needs of our learners. Our adult ed learners took this class, as well as our community residents. They took this class, and that Dr. Karika Parker, she was in my office as one of my staff funded through this graduate assistantship. That's us in our class with adult ed, community learners, OLLI learners. They become members of the OSHA Lifelong Learning Institute. And if you have an OSHA Lifelong Learning Institute, they have a similar profile of volunteers as we do. So I recruit volunteers right out of the OSHA Lifelong Learning Institute as tutors. And they do annually a book and supply drive for us. So I don't have to pay that much for our supplies. They do it for us. Any of our adult learners who complete the class, they become members of OLLI and the OSHA Lifelong Learning Institute. I also serve as co-chair of the advisory board. We took our adult ed and resident scholars to Western Michigan University, so they got a chance to go there and meet the president who signed that memorandum of understanding and the new provost. So they are continually sending people to us as a result of this long and sustained effort to build a collaboration. Once a month, I meet with what we call our WMU KLC advisory board. Any interested faculty, deans, or anyone at Western Michigan University, that's where we come to agreement. And we come together to define what kind of projects we have and find funding to be able to support them. College students. I know that if you are in a community where you have college students, if you're not recruiting them, please start. If you are recruiting them, give them roles and help to develop them and become part of that talent development effort. That's how I talk to the universities. They see us as part of their talent development and talent retention efforts. We've had 132 college students join our faculty for free, 32 in the last year. They come from all of these institutions, delivering lots of quality services, creating a pipeline for us, for our learners to go into these institutions, usually a community college, but also when we need some help that has skilled within different disciplines, we're able to get them in social work, education, communications, and several other disciplines. K College, they're helping us with our community garden project. So that Farmer Mike, also known as me, doesn't have to hire anyone or make my sons do all the work. They come together and help us raise funds. So after you have all of this interest, you're talking big about literacy in all the places that you can. We have an annual fundraiser. We raise about $20,000 a day. Many of our partners, they help to sponsor and raise awareness for our annual Kalamazoo Scrabble Fest. We also run an annual campaign and send our information out to our partners and raise about $60,000 a year for one letter and one appeal that says everyone needs to read. If you or someone you know needs free help or wants to help, give us a call. Now, here's another thing to think about. Yes, literacy is a skill, but should it be treated as a right? You're the chief literacy advocate of your community. You can make the case that it should be, even though it's not legally seen as such. But if your community treats it as a right, that means that even one person is deprived of that right, all should care. And that changes the tone. So I say, if you care about it as a right, we want to have everyone on board to be able to help us to be a part of this cause. Our community has embraced this literacy call as a right. It was a long journey. I was hired, remember, on August 2nd of 2010. The next month, there was this literacy scroll going across the community, across the United States. I don't know if it hit some of your communities, but it hit ours September 2nd, 1 month later. And all of our community leaders signed this commitment to literacy. They had no idea what they signed. They just knew it was going to go to the White House for President Obama to look at. But when I Googled it, it was a declaration for the right to literacy. There's 5 specific pillars. It's a very eloquent document that was created out of Buffalo, New York in 2009. We brought it to it came to Kalamazoo in 2010. My organization formally adopted it in 2014. And we had a recommitment just last year with many other partners that treat literacy as a right, which means we all should care and all hands will be on deck. Our city commission's on deck, our public schools, community colleges. We have a scroll and everyone's signing it, making contributions and getting involved in the effort because we chose this as our social justice issue. I always remind everybody who signed it, did you sign the scroll? What are you doing about it? That's how we got that first 50,000, is reminding the mayor. I said, remember when you said we're going to do something great about literacy? Here's your chance. Our recommitment, we invited a broader range of partners. So it's not just us in literacy, but we lead this effort between communities and schools, SLD Read. We have a joint effort to raise 200 volunteers to replace the volunteers we lost during the COVID-19 pandemic. we're doing this together, and we are on radio next week, or no, actually television next week, talking about our family literacy program. And we've had the audacious goal of adopting the Washington Writers Academy. It's in that same Edison neighborhood, and it was at one point slated for closure due to poor academic performance. Our Literacy Council, along with our literacy partners, said that's unacceptable. And we're going to have every child who struggles to read to have a trained tutor through our literacy partners. Every parent who struggles to read to have a trained tutor through us. This will be funded. And every family to have access to multi-generational learning opportunities to build that culture of learning in this neighborhood and beyond. And every household that has barriers to learning should have access to wraparound services and support. So right now, we're about to make that collective ask to be able to support this effort and replicate it across 5 different schools, because we are the literacy advocates in our community. So some key takeaways, and I know this was a lot, and I don't want to go into overtime because that's bad. Start with what you have. I don't care what it is. I had nothing. It was just me in one office and 49 volunteers and 55 people. Become that chief literacy advocate in your community and prescribe that plan. Build collaborations and partners that shift literacy from an agency issue to a community issue. You'll know it when people are asking you to be a part of things, as opposed to you trying to be a part of things. Right now, I have too much of a full calendar from requests, but we enjoy that. Have a message that promotes literacy as a right with the goal of achieving a fully literate community, and get your community to commit to it. And then finally, position adult literacy as a solution to community challenges, as opposed to a cause that needs support. So we are the solution in workforce development, early childhood education, healthcare, poverty reduction. You can make sure that your organization has that same positioning. We envision that fully literate community. We are helping to make a difference one household at a time. So I'm gonna stop sharing because I know I gave a lot. I'm hoping some of this was able to hit, and I want to make sure we can answer any questions in the remaining 2 minutes that we have left.
Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing. Do we have any questions from anyone in the audience? Yeah, go ahead, Heather.
I just loved it. You were singing to my heart this whole time, Michael. So thank you. I also love those posters, and I was curious how far your person's donation willingness might go, if that was willing to share out of the Kalamazoo area or not. And I guess I also just wanted to add, while you were talking, I work with adult ed, and I was emailing all of our Great Start partners and asking them if they could help us identify the parents that are applying for preschool next year with low educational attainment, to give us a warm handoff to help them get enrolled. So right now I was trying to build those connections. So I just wanted to share. Thank you so much. But I'd love to talk to you more about the promotional posters, the campaigning, and anything that you could share would be awesome.
Sure. Well, again, start with what you have. Great Start's a great partner. We have them as part of ours. As far as these images, I would love to think about, can we have a message for literacy that's for the entire state, and work with literacy councils and MACAE and others to be able to have a message? If it's not this one, pick one. But we need to have a message that talks about us first, as opposed to walking behind other messages. So I'm definitely be interested. We can talk. See another hand is from Christina.
There we go. Hi. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you mention you said that the ESL, that it's offered virtually?
Yes, we have virtual and in-person classes. They're evening, daytime, afternoon, and we're even starting some weekend classes too.
Who could I talk to find out more information about that?
About our program?
The virtual ESL.
We have our adult learning services navigator. Her name is Renee Hammond. If you email me, I can say, here's someone who wants to talk about that.
Great. All right. Thank you. That's one. Great stuff. Thank you.
When we got into ESL, when one of our local ESL programs was disbanding, was run by one of our school programs, and we took it over, and also got the WIOA funding that went with it. So look for opportunities to make literacy central and step in and lead.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for sharing. I know that you've built a lot of collaboration and shared projects in the greater Kalamazoo area, and just appreciate being invited to your collaborative meetings that you have, and for you to share your expertise in this area in many different ways. And appreciate everyone for the questions as well. We are going on a lunch break now. And at 12:15, we will have our legislative priorities update if you'd like to join us for that. Otherwise, we'll see you at 1 o'clock for our last session. Don't say our last session of the day. Hope everyone's doing well. The clouds are rolling in. I hope that doesn't mean that it's gonna RAIN, but take care, everyone. We'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.